Everyone and their mama is trying to make music. And with the accessibility of technology, there's been a birth of easy how-to videos on how to get your vocals to pop out of a 2-track or making a beat in so many minutes. Not even to mention the introduction of AI for features like AI generated Drake.
Get away from me, yeah. Got problem back home, need your tape from me.
If this is gonna do this, dude, I'm about to just make Drake songs all night, bro.
Well, the question is, can someone produce, record, and mix a song in Bandlab, an online DAW through your URL? Well, let's see. In this video, I'm going to rate my experience producing, recording, and mixing in Bandlab and give it an overall star rating. Does Bandlab pass or fail? Welcome to the studio. My name is Opan. Let's get into it.
You don't wanna know what get into me? Feel it course through my veins like Sa. Bar clash with a hat like Ta. Don't everyone come suck around me.
So starting with the recording process in Bandlab, it was quite easy to get started adding a vocal track, but because it's online and you're dealing with internet speeds, it might not matter your computer's CPU or hard drive space, because you're also dealing with the quality and speed of your internet. So because it's an online platform, I noticed a little bit of latency, even though my computer could handle the recording that in a DAW system without any latency. I was noticing latency because of Wi-Fi issues. So I was, especially if you monitor within Bandlab, it was even slower. More latency would happen. So I had to use monitoring through my interface. And due to Bandlab being an all-access platform to record music, it's for people who probably don't have the best equipment, which is why I'm recording on a condenser mic instead of a dynamic mic. So some might not have an interface that can monitor. They might be recording through their phone, which I don't know if there's latency in that situation, but because you're using your cellular speeds. But I did notice latency there. I got one team holding down the delay on this is crazy. All right, so for me, the delay was way too bad on the on Bandlab. Monitoring, the delay for me was awful. So and I have everything at a good setting, so I don't know why the delay is so bad. But I have monitoring going through my interface, so I don't need that monitoring anyway. You also only have a 16-track maximum, which I guess is to be expected, especially because it is online. There's only so much data collection that it could handle, so much load. Although there is a workaround if you continue to bounce other tracks together and comp your tracks with multiple vocal clips onto one track. And then you can also, if you have, like I had, for instance, on this song, I had different instrument tracks. For the beat, you could compress all that into one track and then work that way more efficiently. But that takes you kind of out of the flow of making music, having to stop, compress, move things around, bounce it down, put it back in. So just keep that in mind. But I will say you can record in with auto-tune, which is quite beneficial, and quite surprisingly, the auto-tune was not bad. The auto-tune true is a little gimmicky. It's very cartoonish T-Pain, but it does allow you to kind of experiment and think outside of the box when you play around with it and come up with some pretty cool ideas.
Hold it down. Hold it down.
So concluding, when it comes to recording in Bandlab, the biggest issue I ran into was the latency, and that could be one of the more important issues with recording. You want your latency to be on point. The 16-track minimum wasn't that big of an issue for me understanding who Bandlab is catered to. It's those doing simpler projects, probably starting out and making music, and you're not going to need 200 tracks like Jacob Collier, because if you were doing a project that size, you would probably have an actual paid-for DAW and not an online workspace like Bandlab. You can bounce down your music tracks into one track, that 2-track beat, and then you have 15 tracks for vocals. So that you shouldn't run into an issue there. And you do have nice plugins. You have auto-tune, some other plugins that can get you started, compressors, EQs, different dynamic plugins or enhancing plugins, saturations and stuff that can help you go into recording pretty simply. So I would say altogether for recording, when it comes to working in BandLab, I'll give recording a 3 out of 5 stars. What I had the absolute hardest time with was mixing. Mixing in BandLab was horrific, I'm sorry to say. The plugins. You do have plugins, enough plugins to get started, but you don't have creative plugins. Plugins that help with imagination. Plugins like SoundToys Alter Boy or Decapitator, Echo Boy. Those plugins, you can just move knobs and kind of get different ideas of what you want to do in the mix. Or plugins from Waves like Vocal Bender, Harmony, or even just a simple doubler. Something that I did appreciate was that you can zoom in on your clip, your waveform, and kind of get a little bit more deeper within that clip. Move it, nudge it a little bit, move it around, or you could gain stage from there. You can change the clip gain straight from that view. But outside of that, it's really hard to get surgical, to get right into the weeds of that, between those tracks and really alter and automate things. Obviously, there's no enveloping or anything like that. And as well, when it comes to really getting surgical or moving fast, when mixing a song, you want to be able to use shortcuts. And there are a couple shortcuts within BandLab, but not many, not ones that I'm used to or the ones that I use a lot when I'm mixing. That helps me kind of fly through things. It was also kind of annoying how to figure out how to get my fades. I wasn't really able to really get it to fade easy without zooming it up to that clip view. One of the more obvious problems was that I ran into was obviously there's no bust, so you couldn't bust anything out. So if you had a full set of ad libs that you wanted to mix a particular way or add one particular reverb delay to, or one FX chain to, you would have to create a preset for that FX chain, which that was convenient. They also have, which I guess this is going back to the plugin thing, they did have FX chain presets, which can help someone get started. That is good. But not having any buses for parallel compression or your reverb and your delays could be hard to work around. Also, one last note on the plugins, you're stuck to a limited number of plugins as well. You only have the plugins that are available on BandLab. You don't have any, you can't add your own VSTs or plugins into the BandLab editing environment. So you're stuck with just the plugins that they offer you. So considering everything when it comes to mixing in BandLab, I would say, unfortunately, it gets a pretty low score. Mixing in BandLab has been the worst experience, very annoying. And a lot of times when you're working in a DAW, you might not know how to do one thing, but you can figure out how to finagle your way around and come up with your own way, like kind of MacGyver a solution. But in BandLab, it was really hard for me to figure out how to MacGyver a solution around something, because there was just no way to do what I wanted to do. Overall, unfortunately, I would say mixing in BandLab is quite awful. I would give mixing in BandLab a 1.5 out of 5. So lastly, what we have is production in BandLab, and production was a little bit better than mixing by far. You have a drum pad or a drum kit type of situation that if you plug in your MIDI keyboard, you're able to get right in there and get some drums laid down. You can also draw in MIDI for your drums, and the keyboard is really easy to use for your piano roll and for your drums as well. You can use your keyboard tactile keys for those note inputs, and you don't even really have to set up your computer tactical keyboard as a keyboard. It automatically is a virtual keyboard, because they're probably assuming that you probably don't have MIDI, but they still give you the option to plug in MIDI. And that can be done quite easily once you kind of get the hang of where everything's arranged. You also have a sampler built in. Not even Cakewalk by BandLab, the actual downloadable DAW, doesn't even have a sampler, nor does Cakewalk have a drum kit type of function. So that is very nice. You also obviously have a built-in sound library, which is so beneficial to be able to go in and take sounds straight in from the internet and pull them into your session to get started with whatever sounds you want. The only thing that I did find difficult was that when it came to like drums, I couldn't figure out how to take those drums and put them into my drum kit, drum pad. All right, I'm already struggling with trying to figure out how to get that one out of there and replace it with the one I want. If I wanted to use a drum from the sound library, I basically just had to drop in the waveform right onto the grid. Oh, okay, so this is a drum kit. Let's see. That was the problem that I ran into. I wasn't able to create my own sounds with the drum kits. I was only able to pull from what Bandlab offered as prearranged, already set up drum kits. So for producing in Bandlab, I will give it average. I'll give it 2.5. And the reason being is because you can't get as technical and as deep as you might want to, especially if you're trying to get really creative with a beat. You can't do all the things that you can do in an actual DAW, and that would limit you, not to mention the 16 track limit that you already have starting out. And depending on how you do your drums, that might take up half of your 16 tracks anyway. But you do have a large range of instruments, that set number of plugins, and you can that sound library to get you started. Also the AI aspect to it to kind of get you a template started. If you don't know how to make beats, you could take that template, expand off of it, do whatever. So all in all, I'll give producing in Bandlab a 2.5. So altogether, between recording, mixing, and producing in Bandlab, it gets a total of 2.14 stars, which I guess might be expected. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel. I have been Opan. Thanks for joining me in the studio, and catch you on the next one.